All right, let's dive right in. For decades now, Iran's nuclear program has been this huge global flashpoint. It's a story packed with secrecy, sabotage, and high-stakes diplomacy that's been built up and then torn down. But the most incredible part, just how consistent the ambition has been. So let's unpack this long, complicated, and surprisingly straight line to figure out how we got to the crisis we're in today. To really get a handle on the present, we've got to start with just how high the stakes are right now. And that means we need to define the single most critical term in this entire standoff.
Breakout capability. This is it. This is the timeline that keeps world leaders up at night. And for Iran, as of late 2024, that clock has pretty much run out. We're talking about a timeline that has shrunk from over a year to just a few weeks, maybe even days.
And this number right here is the reason for all the alarm bells, 60%. The International Atomic Energy Agency says Iran now has a big stockpile of uranium enriched to this purity. Now, to put that into perspective, a civilian nuclear power plant, it only needs uranium enriched to about 5%. There is simply no peaceful civilian reason to have uranium enriched this high, period.
So why is 60% the magic number? Well, it's all about the physics of enrichment, which is super front-loaded. Think of it like climbing a really steep mountain. Getting from natural uranium to just 5% purity, that's about 80% of the total work. It's a brutal climb. But once you hit 60%, you're basically at the top. The last little push to get to 90%, which is what you need for a bomb, is practically a walk in the park. It becomes a flat-out sprint to the finish line.
So the bottom line is, Iran is standing right at that finish line. And this leads us to the central question we're going to explore. How on earth did we get to this point? The answer is one of the great ironies of modern history. You see, Iran's nuclear program didn't start in secret, defying the West. It actually began with direct help from the United States. Yeah, you heard that right. It all goes back to President Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace program in the 50s. The idea sounded good on paper. If we share peaceful nuclear tech, countries won't feel the need to build bombs. But in 1967, this policy led the U.S. to give the Shah of Iran not just a research reactor, but also the fuel to run it. And that fuel was 93% highly enriched uranium, literally weapons-usable material. And we're not talking about a few blueprints here. America gave Iran the whole shebang, a full nuclear starter kit, a reactor, nearly 6 kilograms of bomb-grade fuel, plutonium, and even hot cells, which is the special equipment you need to separate that plutonium. The United States literally handed Iran the foundational building blocks of a nuclear weapons program. Then, in 1979, the Iranian Revolution changed everything. Except it turns out for one thing, the nuclear ambition. The desire for this technology has been stunningly consistent, bridging the huge gap between the Shah's monarchy and the Islamic Republic that followed. And this continuity is just wild when you look at what they said. In 1974, someone asked the Shah if Iran would ever get the bomb. He said, without any doubt, and sooner than one would think. Decades later, the Islamic Republic uses almost the exact same playbook, saying it might change its policy if other countries go nuclear. It's the same strategic ambiguity, the same hedging, just spoken by totally different regimes. This quote from former President Rafsanjani just perfectly sums up the whole strategy. He's basically saying the goal isn't to build and test a bomb. The goal is to get so good at the science that you could build one at a moment's notice. It's about creating deterrence just by mastering the technology and letting your rivals sweat, drawing their own conclusions about what you might do. So after the revolution, the program went deep underground, and this kicked off a decades-long war fought not just in diplomatic meetings, but deep in the shadows. It was a conflict of spies, cyber attacks, sabotage, and lots of fights over legal loopholes. And this brings up a really fascinating point. When Iran was finally caught building these massive secret enrichment facilities like Natanz and Fordow, it had a very specific legal argument for why it wasn't technically breaking the rules. It all came down to this tiny difference in the international rulebook. Under the original rule, a country only had to fess up about a new nuclear facility 180 days before putting nuclear material inside it. The rule was later changed to require countries to declare a site as soon as they decide to build it. Iran basically just said, hey, we never agreed to that change, so they claimed they were only bound by the old, much looser rule. It gave them legal cover to build in secret for years. So you have this constant battle playing out. You've got Iran pushing the absolute limits of international law, and at the same time, its adversaries were pushing back with covert action. And that shadow war was intense.
I mean, we've all heard about the Stuxnet computer worm, right? This incredibly sophisticated cyber attack that physically wrecked thousands of centrifuges by making them spin out of control. But there was more. Foreign intelligence agencies also allegedly sabotaged the supply chain, slipping flawed blueprints into the system so that when Iran bought parts, they were designed to fail and destroy the machines. Okay, so this long, grinding standoff eventually led to the landmark 2015 nuclear deal, the JCPOA. Its main purpose wasn't to end Iran's program for good, but to do one simple thing: buy time. To push that breakout capability from just weeks back to at least a full year. The scale of what the deal required was just stunning. The biggest and most immediate impact was forcing Iran to ship 98% of its enriched uranium stockpile right out of the country. It essentially took away all of its potential bomb fuel, immediately adding months to that breakout clock. The deal put a whole bunch of brakes on the program. It capped enrichment purity at a low level that's only good for power plants. It drastically cut the number of spinning centrifuges. And, maybe most importantly, it blocked off the second path to a bomb, the plutonium path, by forcing Iran to pour concrete into the core of its heavy water reactor at Arak. That 1 year of warning time, that was the big diplomatic prize. But it all fell apart. In 2018, the U.S. pulled out of the deal and slapped sanctions back on. Iran's response was, well, predictable. It started systematically breaking every single limit from the deal, shrinking that breakout time right back down again. So you might be wondering, why should someone living outside the Middle East care about any of this? Why worry about centrifuges spinning in an underground facility? The answer really comes down to global economic security. The number one concern is that a nuclear-armed Iran, or even just a nuclear-capable Iran, would feel far more protected. It would feel emboldened to act more aggressively and disrupt global trade at critical choke points, knowing it has the ultimate insurance policy. And this number explains why that matters to every single one of us. 20%. 1/5 of the entire world's daily oil supply has to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow shipping lane Iran can threaten. We've already seen how even small disruptions in this region can make energy prices spike and mess up supply chains. A nuclear Iran could make those disruptions a permanent feature of the global economy. So Iran has now mastered the technology. You can't unlearn that knowledge, and the 2015 deal is pretty much dead, which leaves us with the final, unavoidable question. After a half-century of this consistent, unwavering ambition, is a nuclear-capable Iran now simply inevitable?